Henry, the Prime Minister has announced today that she wants to increase the Medicare levy by 0.5% in order to raise more than $3 billion each year to pay for the new disability care. How far will that contribute towards the cost of disability care?
Well, at this stage we don't really know, because we don't know exactly how much this disability care scheme is going to cost. We have trials underway, and until those trials are completed and evaluated, we don't really have the details of exactly what disability care will cover, much less how much providing those services will ultimately cost the community.
In the past, you've written in the newspaper that you think a levy to pay for what was then called the National Disability Insurance Scheme was a good idea. Do you think this levy is a good idea?
When I suggested that a levy might be a sensible approach to funding the NDIS, now disability care, that was really for two reasons. The first reason was that by having a levy that covers the costs of the program, you can assure the program with stable funding over the long term. Secondly, by the same mechanism, you can ensure that taxpayers are aware of the cost of the program and hence have incentives to ensure that that program is indeed being provided efficiently. The difficulties with the scheme as Gillard has proposed it today is that it's not sufficient to cover the costs, at least as best we can tell, and even she admits that the costs will be several times the amount this levy will raise. So it doesn't actually ensure funding stability for the scheme in the long run, and for exactly the same reason, it doesn't signal to taxpayers just how expensive this program is, and hence really give them the incentives to enforce accountability in the way this policy is ultimately delivered.
So the Prime Minister has said that she doesn't want this levy to become a political plaything. What do you think about the politics of making this announcement today?
Well, this is, to my mind, almost completely political. Start with the fact that she's reversed what has been her hallmark, which is to spend first and tax later. Now what she's doing is she's decided that she wants to raise the tax, but we don't know exactly what it's funding, when it's funding it, how that funding is split between the Commonwealth and the states. All these details are still to be determined. All we know is that we'll have this tax. So what is this tax? This is a tax to fund good intentions, not to fund a specific policy, and it puts her on the side of the angels, and hence is intended to put Tony Abbott and the coalition in a box.
So what should Tony Abbott do in response?
Clearly what Tony Abbott should not do is endorse this tax before we have much more detail about exactly what is proposed, how it would work, how this fund would be structured, how that would relate to the costs of the scheme. Abbott should insist on good policy process. And good policy process in this case involves completing the pilot trials, evaluating them, designing the scheme, assessing funding options, agreeing those funding options with the states, and at that point you will have a genuine consensus, one hopes, and it's that consensus that Tony Abbott should endorse.
Sounds like great advice. Thanks very much, Henry.
Thanks, Rebecca.